You're audible.
Okay. So please
So,
continue.
perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. On behalf of Islamabad Policy Research Institute, I welcome you all to today's webinar titled How Will the Biden Administration Have an Impact on South Asian Security? Today's distinguished speaker is Dr. Munis Ahmer. Dr. Ahmer is former Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Meritorious Professor at the Department of International Relations, University of Karachi. He was also Chairman, Department of International Relations, University of Karachi, and is Director, Program on Peace Studies and Conflict Resolution. His field of specialization is conflict and security studies, focusing on the South and Central Asian regions. Dr. Ahmer has 36 years of academic experience in Pakistan and in different foreign universities and research think tanks. He is the author of 3 books, 4 monographs, and has edited 15 books on different themes of international relations. Thank you for being with us, sir. It's an absolute privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to remind the participants that during the webinar, you can send me your questions and comments using the Q&A chat box. Please identify yourself and the institution you are associated with, and I'd really appreciate if you keep your comments and questions brief and short. I would now request Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, Acting President IPRI, to give his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Umar. Welcome, sir. It's indeed a privilege to have you with us today. And Dr. Munis needs no introduction. As we all know, he's one of the distinguished scholars who has been doing great contributions. And we are indeed lucky this morning to have him with us to speak on a very important topic. We know that in the wake of US elections, a new administration is about to be inducted. And there is, as the saying, every such transition brings many changes in security, economic, and political dynamics, which impact upon our region. And what better person than Dr. Munis to regale us and to enlighten us on all those security and political and economic dimensions of that transition. We know that Republican and Democratic administrations, Democrats, they have been different in their relative approaches, but over a period of time, general thrust of strategic community in the United States has become consistent, and they do not change, they do not make radical changes in their policy in the regions. But despite that, the Democrats have their own approach, and we expect a more nuanced, more focused, and a different approach on soft power, economic linkages, student exchanges, and use of soft power instead of the hard power, which the United States was doing under Republican administration. When we speak of the region and its impact on the security dynamics, security nowadays is a very wide term, which includes economics more than the other dimensions of security. And we know that we have hitched our wagon to the Chinese on economic plane, and in many ways, this is one of our strategic imperatives. CPEC is just a manifestation. And instead of a competitive paradigm, if the Democrats can adopt a cooperative paradigm, then this region, I think, would benefit. And we would also like to know from Dr. Munis today, the East-West corridors possibilities and potentialities, because if we can somehow plug in East-West, which is India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia, and United States can give some support by way of public-private partnerships, by way of some economic projects, which could plug in with CPEC. So what we have from China, what we have in the United States in a win-win formulations, I think that would be a bonanza for the region. And with these few words, I won't like to stay between you and Dr. Saab. So with this, sir, once again, welcome, and we would be looking to a very enlightened discourse. So over to you. Over.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua Sahib, First of all, I would like to thank Islamabad Policy Research Institute for arranging my lecture on how will Biden administration have an impact on South Asian security. I have around 30 minutes, and I'll be more interested in having a discourse through this Q&A session, because certainly it's we are at the crossroads, and a couple of things at the outset which I would like to mention here. The first is that when we talk about South Asian security, certainly it emanates from internal security dynamics. There are also external security challenges and threats. And this region, which is called as South Asia, has around 20-25% of global population. It stretches from Afghanistan to Bangladesh, from Nepal to Sri Lanka, including Maldives. So from the geostrategic point of view, it has its own significance and importance. Now, coming to the topic, basically, we have to understand that the Biden-Kamala administration, I mean, let's put it like that, Biden-Kamala administration, that administration has not taken charge so far. And of course, I don't want to mention here about the cumbersome procedure and the processes, the transition, and how Donald Trump, he tried to, derail this process. But the fact is basically that Joseph Biden, who was the vice president for 8 years, along with President Barack Obama, who was twice chairman Foreign Relations Committee, who was he's quite known in South Asia. He's an old guard, absolutely. The second thing is that he has a team, a very strong team, a very powerful team on foreign policy. And after the election results, which were unofficially announced, he made a statement that the United States is ready to lead the world, to play a leadership role in a leadership role which during the Trump administration had a question mark. Now, there are three fundamental questions as far as the theme of my presentation is concerned. The first is that to what extent the Biden administration will unleash the process of dialogue between India and Pakistan, particularly as far as the contentious issue of Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Donald Trump, during when he was halfway through, he made a reference to the Kashmir conflict, and he said that the US would like to play a role which can help India and Pakistan to deal with more than 7 decades of this unfortunate conflict, which was a cause of 2 wars, 1948, 1965, and then there was the Kargil War. So Kashmir is certainly a flashpoint, regardless of the fact that India may undermine its importance after what it did through the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of August 5th last year. So to what extent the Biden administration, as was mentioned by Brigadier Janjua about the soft power, that certainly I think there'll be a perceptive change during his administration, a policy whereby he would like to encourage these 2 nuclear-armed countries for a constructive dialogue. Unlike the Trump administration and Donald Trump, he only talked about the rhetoric. It was a rhetoric that the US would like to play a role for this Kashmir. He did nothing about it. And then the second question is that how the Biden-Kamala administration will deal with some of the hard realities, like, for example, the surge of Hindu nationalism in India, because India is not what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. India has changed. The surge of Hindu nationalism, and what about the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, because the policy position was taken by Kamala Harris, before the election campaign, and there was a critical appraisal of CAA, and also the Kashmir thing, that these two issues which the Democratic Party would like to, to deal with seriously. So that is another question, that to what extent now, once they will be in power at the helm of affairs in the White House, then the real test will begin. The third question is that will there be a policy change as far as the US is concerned on South Asia? Now, there are a couple of realities which we have to take into account when we talk about South Asian security as such. The first reality is that certainly the two major countries of South Asia, fortunately or unfortunately, these two countries, that is India and Pakistan, they have around 77% of the population and the territory and the resources of South Asia. Other countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Maldives, Afghanistan, these countries do not matter as such. But during the Biden administration, one can expect a level playing field. One can expect space to be given to other South Asian countries apart from India and Pakistan. So the fact is, basically, the reality is that the South Asian security itself, there is a vacuum. The security architecture of South Asia is not, it's not like Southeast Asia. It's not like Europe. It's not like, other parts of the world. And the fact is basically that another player in the South Asian security, this thing, is the People's Republic of China. How would the Biden administration deal with China? And a lot of, talk is going on, much is being written about to what extent the Biden administration will have a policy as far as China is concerned, the containment of China, the Cold War, something like that. But I would like to make it clear that unlike the Trump administration, and that administration was very rash as far as China concerned, ridiculing China, and that is something which the Biden administration will not do. And it will basically prefer competitive coexistence with China, like the policy of peaceful coexistence, which during the Khrushchev era was unleashed by the then Soviet Union vis-a-vis the West, the United States, policy of peaceful coexistence. So competitive coexistence, that these two parts, economic parts, United States and the and People's Republic of China, they must positively compete, and then of course positive diplomacy. That is something which will be the focus as far as the Biden administration is concerned. But the second reality is that the South Asian countries must put their own house in order. And it's very unfortunate that the internal security issues of South Asia are so lethal. For example, the pandemic, that India is the casualty rate, that's the third highest in India after United States, Brazil, and then comes India. Pakistan is also facing a similar problem. Bangladesh is facing a problem. So it's a major security issue as far as the pandemic thing is concerned. The second internal security issue which the Biden administration will have to, of course, United States itself is grappling with this pandemic thing and the casualties, and more than 250,000 people killed over there. But certainly a country like Bhutan, which focuses on environment, and other countries of South Asia, where global warming, climate change, and things like that are very significant. So basically, how if the US rejoins the Paris, climate this agreement, that is something which will be welcomed by the South Asian countries, because one issue which South Asia is facing, it deals with the environment. the global warming, the climate change, and of course, along with that, the water and the energy and the fragility of all such resources. So that is something which we have to basically understand, that the internal security issues of South Asia, whether you have the pandemic or the environmental or the food security, human security, comprehensive security, national security, and then comes as far as the security issues dealing with the countries of South Asia, among the countries of South Asia, including China. Unfortunately, South Asia has not been able to evolve a mechanism as far as its security architecture is concerned because of the issues. I don't want to talk about, the contentious issues as far as India and Pakistan are concerned, because these are the issues which we will have to live with. But certainly the third reality is the major destabilizing factor in South Asia, that is Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a member of SAARC, and Afghanistan is a destabilizing factor as far as the three Asias are concerned: Central Asia, West Asia, South Asia.
Dr. Manish, can you hear me? So if you could kindly unmute yourself. If you could kindly. Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Perfect.
now. So I was basically mentioning that Afghanistan as a major destabilizing factor, and the policy of Trump administration, which some of the circles and they appreciated about the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan. He was very much excited. He was very much anxious. Total American withdrawal, US forces withdrawal from Afghanistan before Christmas, it has not happened. But then we have to understand that Pentagon, it is the Department of Defense, and the American military establishment, and even the forthcoming Biden administration, they will not be supportive to the idea of total American military withdrawal from Afghanistan, because the thing is basically that history teaches us the lesson that when Afghanistan was left alone in lurch after the Soviet military intervention in Afghanistan by the US. And then Afghanistan became basically a battleground, a civil war, and then became a hub of terrorism, Al-Qaeda, and things like that. The US and NATO, these two, they wouldn't like to take a chance. And there is a firm likelihood of a rethinking as far as the Biden administration is concerned about the total American withdrawal from Afghanistan. But then, of course, as far as what I was referring to when there was a technical issue about the TAPI and United States supports TAPI, United States had opposed Iran, Pakistan, and then at that time, India gas pipeline. And because of the sanctions and, India, withdrew from that. Pakistan also had to. But in case of this this corridor, whether you have the gas pipeline or you have the energy, this connectivity, that's a very good idea to connect Central Asia and South Asia. And also, since South Asia is energy deficient, but the problem is Afghanistan. Unless there is peace in Afghanistan, there is no way one can basically give some sort of a functional shape as far as TAPI is concerned, or other projects linking Tajikistan, Pakistan, and then other countries of South Asia to provide electricity concerned. Now, much has been said about the first 100 days of Biden administration. I think we should not have high hopes, because of the from the coming administration. It is true that Joseph Biden, he secured more popular votes like Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. But the fact is that the Republican Party, the ultra right, Donald Trump, I don't think that Donald Trump will be a dead horse. His legacy will continue to haunt the Biden-Kamala administration in the years to come. Because a lot of damage has been done. And I don't want to talk about the Iran thing, that what is going on in Iran and how the Israeli, the involvement in Iran and to many other things. Fact is basically that in the 100 years, and it all depends as far as the Senate is concerned, because when we talk about South Asian security, when we talk about the United States in a big way, it tries to play a role in South Asia, an economic role, a role which can, a diplomatic role. But I think what is possible is basically, regardless of the impediments which the Biden administration may face from the Republican Party in the Senate.
Sir? Sir, can you hear me? Sir, I think there's a problem with your internet connection due to which you're disconnecting. Dr. Muniz, if you can hear me, if you could just... Sir, if you could kindly just unmute yourself.
We have to bear with this, there's a technology, and of course, there are issues.
Understandable, sir. No problem at all.
Anyway, now the thing is basically that we are talking about the Senate and how the Senate can derail, the Republican majority can derail, the reforms, the foreign policy initiatives, because the Senate, which deals with the foreign policy and things like that. Now, there's a possibility, because the personality matters. The personality of Donald Trump, very rude, arrogant, hawkish, and he may be a very nice person, absolutely. I mean, I have no doubt about it. But then the personality matters. Biden's personality is totally different as far as Trump is concerned. His personality, given his experience, given his decades and decades, and the fact that the Democratic Party, I was reading that, has a team which is so professional. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they are not controlling Senate. But the other thing which we have to keep in mind is that certainly the US will not be able to play a very assertive role as far as the South Asian security is concerned. It will not confront with China. Certainly, no. I mean, that is not possible. What I mentioned about competitive coexistence, that will be the policy. The Biden administration will encourage, like the Clinton administration, will encourage the track 1 and track 2 diplomacy between India and Pakistan. But it all depends, it all depends on the countries of South Asia, the South Asian region, because it is not what was during Clinton administration, Obama administration. Things in India have changed. And, with 2/3 majority, the BJP, and is trying to change the face of India. And the last point, the agenda of BJP, if they get a majority in the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of the Indian Parliament, if they get a majority, like we are having election, we will have elections of Senate in March. If we have elections in March, Senate, similarly, they will have elections of Rajya Sabha which is the upper house, and the BJP will certainly get 2/3 majority. And if they get the 2/3 majority, the Modi regime has a plan to delete from the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which categorically stated that India as a secular state. They've already, changed the shape of their occupied Jammu and Kashmir by annexing by the Union territory of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir and things like that. So they are very confident about it. But the fact is basically that if that thing happens, and India is declared as a Hindu state, and the word that secular, although it was just figurehead, is removed from the Indian Constitution, what will happen to India? And India has borders with almost all the South Asian countries. The map of India, which I saw, which was showed by the Indian ambassador, High Commissioner, Indian High Commissioner to Singapore in 2011, when I was at the Nanjing Technological University, the South Asian Studies Center. So they had invited the Indian ambassador to give a talk on the Indian foreign policy, and the map of India, which he reflected, was reflecting that India having borders with Afghanistan. So that is something which we have to understand, that again, it will be up to the Indian public opinion, the civil society, the opposition. They have failed. They have visibly failed. The judiciary of India, the Supreme Court of India has failed to counter the rising tide as far as Hindu nationalism is concerned. So this is what Biden administration will have to grapple with. To challenge what Modi regime will be up to after this Kashmir thing. Now, to conclude, I think we have to understand that one way out, basically, it will be a change in the policy. If there's a change in the Biden administration policy, that a South Asian policy which is not India-centric, although there's a Quad, and the Quad thing during the Trump administration, in which India, Australia, Japan, United States, to contain China. Containment of China, of course, the US would like to contain, not like the Soviet during the Cold War times, but a containment of China in a positive manner. And there's a competition, economic competition, business, commerce, that should be done politically, that should be done diplomatically, that should be done economically, not by the use of hard power. So that is what is basically the American policy. It will be certainly to use India against China, but not at the expense of regional peace, because China and Pakistan, day before yesterday, they signed memorandum of understanding on defense cooperation when the Chinese defense visited Islamabad. So that is a fact. And the Biden administration, if pursues a prudent approach, a wise approach, an approach which is different than the Trump administration, because Trump administration was different. Totally different. Was more interested in business and things like that. South Asia was not. Although one can say that the Donald Trump, when invited Modi in Texas and Houston, and there was a big show in which Modi and Trump were together. But certainly the fact is basically that the Biden administration wouldn't like to keep all its eggs in one basket, and to promote a policy whereby it's not India-centric, because it is true that around 2/3 of South Asia is India, and it's asymmetrical. And that is why one thing which I would, and then I will, and then I'll end because my time will be over, that which I've been suggesting since long, that one way to deal with this asymmetry in South Asia, security asymmetry, demographic asymmetry, economic asymmetry, political asymmetry, military asymmetry in South Asia is basically that when we talk about SAARC, that is South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, absolutely. I mean, like, it's so unfortunate that this regional organization has become a victim of politics since 2016. The summit of SAARC was scheduled in Islamabad in November 16, but India, along with couple of other South Asian countries, they boycotted. And then the process of SAARC, and who has benefited for? No one has benefited from this policy. So the one option is basically, and I know that India will not agree to it, is to include China as a full-fledged member of SAARC. That China has an observer status. Right? So if China is admitted as a full-fledged member of SAARC, then it will be a win-win situation for all the South Asian countries, given the Chinese success as far as emerging as the world's second largest economy is concerned, or maybe it has surpassed the United States. So that is something, and China has borders with 5 of the 8 South Asian countries. Almost 6. Bangladesh is in the proximity of China. So that is one thing which we have to understand, but all depends on, the Indian, the South Bloc in New Delhi. It all depends on the Modi regime. It all depends on, those who are at the helm of affairs as far as India is concerned. Because a greater responsibility when we talk about the South Asian security, it rests with India. And that is also, I think, known and is understandable as far as the Biden administration is concerned. There has to be change in India. I mean, change for the better. And that change for the better, whereby it doesn't act like a country which would like to impose its, whatever, its domination and things like that. So basically, I would like to end with a note that South Asian security
I think there is a technical issue at Dr. Muniz Ahmed's side, so we'll just wait for him to rejoin us. Sir, if you could just let me know if you can hear me. Perfect, sir.
How strong we are internally. I wish if there's a change, a qualitative change in the mindset of those who are helm of affairs in South Asia. They concentrate on internal security issues. That South Asia is the most backward region of the world. Half of the world's poor, they live in South Asia. That's a pity. And when we talk about South Asia, regardless of its civilizational, that very old civilization and things like that, the fact is basically that the last Olympics, South Asia was not able to secure even one gold medal. So that is what is on level as far as the global sports concerned. What do we matter as far as the global world GDP is concerned? As far as Human Development Index is concerned. So we have to understand all these things, and I would like to end here with this note, with a positive note. Let's see what the Biden administration, once it settles down, it will take time, because it's South Asia is far, it's maybe a periphery. It's true that it deals with the 3 nuclear states, India, Pakistan, and China. True, Afghanistan, these things, the Kashmir issue, other issues. But the fact is basically that South Asia at the moment, it doesn't matter much. There are other issues which the Biden administration will have to deal with. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very enlightening talk. You touched at many different facets of the topic, and there are many questions for you. So, but I'll start with the point that Acting President Brigadier Rashid kind of alluded to in his welcome remarks, which was regarding the possibility of the materialization of the East-West Economic Corridor, which would be linking India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia, including Kasa, Tapi. So under the Biden administration, what do you think, what are the possibilities of the materialization of such a humongous project? And is there any possibility of it being connected to China-Pakistan Economic Corridor?
Well, I'm glad that you have asked this question about CASA and TAPI. You know, these are I don't have any problems with such projects. But our problem is that there's a lot of daydreaming. And the daydreaming basically that we are not mindful as far as the ground realities are concerned. And I mentioned very clearly, forget about the political will. Forget about the realities about the level of polarization between India and Pakistan. But the issue is Afghanistan. Unless there is peace in Afghanistan, there is no way CASA and TAPI can materialize. The United States can certainly, push for normalcy in Afghanistan. But then the people of Afghanistan, the warlords, the stakeholders over there, the Afghan regime, the Taliban, there are many, they are the ones who have to put their own house in order as Afghanistan is concerned. So the idea is very good. And then what's wrong as far as Iran-Pakistan gas pipeline is concerned? Iran was able to construct the pipeline till the borders of Pakistan, but since because of the sanctions and things like that, India in fact first let down. It was let down from the Indian side. It was Iran-Pakistan India gas pipeline. India withdrew from that. So what I'm saying is basically that ideally speaking, there has to be human security. There has to be a good quality of life, people, because unless people are secure economically, unless they are secure environmentally, unless they are secure from all these sides, the region cannot be secure. That is, would always remain vulnerable. There's a problem with Afghanistan. That country is 200 years older than Pakistan, 1747. It has not been able to settle down as a nation state. So that is something which the people of Afghanistan will have to be mindful of, that enough is enough. It has been like 42 years of civil war and armed conflict in Afghanistan. And the benefits are enormous, certainly. And Afghanistan is, a country which is a major impediment as far as this regional cooperation. And no one talks about ECO these days, Economic Cooperation Organization, where it has gone. SAARC is in limbo. So the regional organizations, these are the organizations which must play a pivotal role in order to transform this CASA and TAPI into reality.
So then connected to the answer you just gave regarding the possibility of the East-West Economic Corridor, so what do you make of the current peace negotiations and peace talks that are taking place with regards to Afghanistan? Do you think there is cause for cautious optimism? What do you see as the end result, sir?
Well, one needs to be optimistic. But then if there are 2 steps forward, there are 4 steps backward. Like in case of India and Pakistan, in Afghanistan, the same thing. That whenever, the Doha talks, the February Accord agreement between the United States and the Taliban, the problem with Taliban is basically that they don't want to join the political process. If you want to be recognized as a political party, as a political entity, then you must first of all accept the constitution of Afghanistan. democracy, political process.
So we can't hear you. If you could. Ladies and gentlemen, I think there's again a technical issue. So if you could kindly just bear with us, Dr. Manish would be joining us very shortly. Apologies for this disturbance, everyone. We're just waiting for Dr. Manish to join us again. It's a technical issue at his end, so please bear with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just spoken to Dr. Muniz Emir. Please bear with us. He'll be with us very shortly. I apologize for this inconvenience. While he joins us, I'd just like to remind everyone that you can send me your Q&As, your questions using the Q&A chat box. And ladies and gentlemen, please bear with us. We're just waiting for Dr. Muniz Emir to join us. He's having technical difficulty at his end, so he'll be with us very, very shortly. We have some really interesting questions with us, so we look forward to the discussion and the answers that Dr. Muniz will be giving. So please bear with us. I apologize for this inconvenience. It's a technical issue at the end of Dr. Muniz Emir. Perfect, sir. Can you hear me? Am I audible to you?
I have again, I have again, yeah, okay, yeah.
Perfect, sir. You're back on and we can hear you loud and clear.
Right.
Sir. So, sir, we'll move on to the next question. The next question is from Ambassador Asif Durrani. So his question pertains to the possibility of dialogue between Pakistan and India. He asks, do you think it will go on indefinitely or there could be some ice breaking between the two nuclear powers under the Biden administration?
Well, I don't think there is any possibility of this melting of ice because, Pakistan suspended dialogue with India. Pakistan downgraded its diplomatic ties with India and took other measures after this August 5th, 2019, this this Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act. So unless there is a change as far as the Modi regime is concerned on Jammu and Kashmir, primarily like they revoke their step which they had taken on August 15. That may be one thing, because if the Modi regime is confident that it can get away with such type of a policy of absorbing, Jammu and Kashmir for good, and is not flexible. The Indian Supreme Court is also not taking any position on that. So then there is no possibility, because if we agree to, if there's a gesture on the part of India, and what the Biden administration can send, communicate to the Indian side that
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely sorry for the technical issue. There is a technical glitch again, and then at Dr. Muniz Ahmed's end. So please bear with us. He'll be with us very shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please bear with us. We're sorting out the technical glitch, and hopefully Dr. Munis Ahmed will be with us very shortly. So if you could just unmute yourself.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes. Sorry about it. I don't know like that's something which is so normal, usual. Anyway.
That's perfectly fine, sir. We'll move on to the next question, which is by General Naeem Lodi. Sir, he is asking that what makes you think that the United States wants normalcy in Afghanistan, keeping in mind their interests in the region, like declining Russia, China, and some South Asian republics' access to Indian Ocean and resources of the region?
Well, after almost 40 years of this experience in Afghanistan, the United States certainly feels that enough is enough. And there has to be normalization process in Afghanistan, because unless, as I said earlier, there is peace in Afghanistan, there will be no peace in the three regions, that is Central Asia, West Asia, and South Asia. So it is in the American interest. And as I said earlier, that unlike the Trump administration, the policy of Biden-Kamala administration will be on positive diplomacy, constructive engagement, constructive, peaceful coexistence. We don't like to open fronts, everywhere. So that is what I feel, that for the United States, Afghanistan is important, but then the US wouldn't like to compromise as far as this Afghanistan political system is concerned. That if the Taliban, they refuse to change their approach as far as politics is concerned, the United States will continue to, along with NATO and other countries, will continue to have its military presence in Afghanistan. I'm not saying that they will use hard power or whatever power or drone attacks and things like that, but there'll be a greater risk for the Biden administration if they just quit Afghanistan. And what had happened after the Geneva Accords of April 14, 1988. So that is what I feel. We have to keep our fingers crossed. It is too early to basically assume or speculate on such matters, but certainly given the fact that the Democratic Party, as I said earlier, will grapple with many issues. It has many fronts, and Afghanistan is one of the fronts. So therefore, it is interested for peace in Afghanistan, for normalization in Afghanistan, but not at the expense that Afghanistan is again taken over by force, by one group or by another group, and then it's the legitimacy of that force. It will be questionable. It will be contested by those who are against. I mean, like the Northern Alliance and others, the so-called Northern Alliance, others, because Afghanistan is not what it was in 2001. It has changed in last 20 years.
Sure. So the next question is from Mr. Khurram Abbas. He's a research officer at Islamabad Policy Research Institute. He says Iran and China have signed a gigantic strategic cooperation agreement worth $400 billion US, but have not officially announced it yet. The agreement has limited Indian presence in Iran to some extent. Considering you just talked about the positive diplomacy that the Biden administration would conduct, how would the Biden administration respond to this deal, and what would be its impact on South Asian security, sir?
Well, there are two questions. I mean, like, of course, China and Iran, absolutely. I mean, these two countries, they have, in the last 15, 20 years, established close relations, an element of anti-Americanism from the Chinese side, from the Iranian side. But the Biden administration wouldn't like to be negative on this deal. I mean, so what? If there's a $400 billion or $200 billion off, it doesn't. It will not be at that expense of the American, because certainly the US also would like to reach as far as Tehran is concerned. I mean, it was something which was very unfortunate that the US withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. So primarily South Asian security, and then the perception that India will have a leverage in Iran. China will have a leverage in Iran at the expense of India. But Indian-Iranian relations are also quite strong. I don't underestimate their ties as such. So we should not just assume or form an opinion on the basis of some of the superficial facts. And as I said earlier, it is too early. Let them settle down. And as I said earlier, that they have, as I said previously, that they have a very strong foreign policy team. But it all depends again as far as Senate is concerned. If Senate is controlled by the Democratic Party, then they can certainly push many of the resolutions and the reforms and the steps through Senate. But if and Biden himself was twice the chairman of Senate Foreign Relations Committee, so he's very familiar. There is a need, on the part of the Democratic Party, and I think they will work on it. I'm very positive about it, for a bipartisan support on some of the issues. And Biden was very much instrumental in the Kerry-Lugar-Bremen bill. So that was something, I mean, we can discuss later on about it. But then certainly it is not the American sort of insecurity vis-a-vis Sino-Iranian $400 billion or whatever their deal. And China itself, as you said in the question, that China has not made a firm commitment on that. It is just like MOU, Memorandum of Understanding.
So the next question is from Mr. Anwar Salim Kamal. So he's asking, in your presentation, in your talk, you spoke about soft power and how the Biden administration would be resorting to more soft power rather than hard power. His question is that what opportunities are there for Pakistan to kind of employ soft power to better relations, better Pakistan-US relations, and how can we measure the efficacy or the where the soft power is actually working? How do we measure that?
Well, I hope that unlike the Obama administration, there will be no such policy on the part of the Biden Kamala administration, asking Pakistan to do more and do more. Soft power focuses on diplomacy, it focuses on trade, it focuses on cultural diplomacy and things like that. And that is what is the mission, that is what is the priority of Democratic Party, to take damage control measures as far as the image of the US is concerned, which has been badly hurt in the last 4 years. So what the US can help Pakistan in terms of trade, in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of, but I don't think they'll be, like, those days are gone. when a lot of aid and military aid, economic aid. I think it is good for Pakistan that we have to be on our own. We should not be dependent as far as any foreign source is concerned. But the soft power, the US is like Russian Federation has been using both hard power and soft power. Earlier in China, the only country which practically adhering to the policy of soft power. And soft power, according to this coming years, it all depends on Pentagon. It all depends on the US military establishment, how it reacts to it, because there are hawks everywhere. There are doves and there are hawks everywhere. What about the soft power? As far as Israel is, Palestine is concerned, there has to be a policy, well-crafted policy on the part of the Democratic Party as far as Palestine is concerned. Palestinian state, a viable Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem. That is what was committed in the earlier, to revive the Oslo process. So that is done through dialogue, and dialogue is the only solution. It cannot be done. I mean, the US has spent $2 trillion. Can one imagine? In the last 20, 25, 30 years, since this, 2003, the attack over Iraq and earlier Afghanistan and its engagements everywhere, the American defense budget is 50% of the global military expenditures. Can the US afford that? As was said by Barack Obama around 10 years ago, that a nation should live within its means. Even Barack Obama couldn't slash the American defense. So it was done only during Clinton administration, when he was serious in balancing budget, when the US defense expenditures were slashed to around $300 billion. Now the American defense expenditures, military expenditures, are $600 billion, a country which is a debt of more than $20 trillion. A country which has been destroyed, almost destroyed as a result of pandemic, to more than 250,000 people killed. Millions of Americans have been jobless, $2 trillion of economic losses. And the American people are very angry with the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, that why she is not taking, along with the Republican Party, a major step for the stimulus program, around $1.5 trillion of a stimulus program to help those Americans who have been hit hard because of the pandemic. So basically, it's very easy to talk about soft power, but then when it comes to the national interests, so-called national interests or national security interests, or other interests, then there's a contradiction. It is better if the Biden administration is above contradictions. Otherwise, it will lose its credibility very soon.
Thank you, sir. Sir, with this, we'll move on to the last question of this Q&A session. So, sir, with regards to the transition team of the Biden administration, as well as he's in the process of choosing his cabinet members, we've seen that he's chosen quite a few Indian Americans in the transition team, as well as so do you think that would have an impact on the Biden administration's India policy or the India-Pakistan equation? Do you think there would be a positive impact, a negative impact? And if there is a negative impact, what would you suggest that Pakistan needs to do to kind of counter it?
Well, I think we have to understand that they may be Indian Americans, but they're Americans first. They're first Americans, right? And what sort of Americans, Indian Americans they are? Are they pro-BJP? Are they moderates? Do they adhere to the secular Indian identity? So 20 Indian American origin, people have been inducted in the team of Biden-Kamala administration. There's a huge Indian diaspora all over the world. It's not only United States or elsewhere. The US certainly in the IT, in other areas, the Indian community is there. I mean, we cannot compete. We cannot compare their clout, in the Congress and in the military-industrial complex and elsewhere. But I don't think that the Biden-Kamala administration will, while appointing such Indian American people, will take the risk of portraying itself as pro-Indian. They would like to remain neutral. Although the perception basically, the Democratic Party has been pro-Indian, Republican Party has been pro-Pakistan, but I think these are not irrelevant because of the prevailing situation. What matters for the Biden administration is basically to put its own house in order and to set the ball rolling. If it is not done, then they will be in a vicious cycle, and certainly 2022, when the midterm elections will be held, 2024, when presidential elections will be held, so they'll not be, and perhaps it is the first and the last term of Joseph Biden because of his, whatever. But I think I don't see anything fishy about it, any conspiracy theory about it, led by appointing such Indian American people. I mean, those who have been very resourceful. It is in their interest to take to seek their expertise. And of course, there may be Pakistani Americans, there may be Bangladeshi Americans, there may be Czech Americans, there may be French Americans, there may be Nigerian Americans, and because in the United States we have people from all over the world. And India is certainly the world's second, after China, from the demographic point of view, second most populous country. It is the fourth largest military in the world. It has its own issues, but the United States cannot disregard the Indian, this reality. But it wouldn't like to, get itself to be dubbed as hostile to Pakistan or hostile to another country.
Thank you so much, sir, for an extremely informative and very candid Q&A session. There are many other questions and comments that we got from the participants, but due to the paucity of time, we've had to curtail the Q&A session. But thank you so much, sir. With this, I'd just like to invite Acting President IPRI, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, for his concluding remarks. Over to you, sir. If you could please unmute yourself. So if you could please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Moniz, for a very enlightening discourse. I think we all stand educated at the end of the discourse. When we talk of the new administration, that is the Democrats, their effect on regional security, I'm sure we need to go back to what the thinking of that administration was, because in Joe Biden, I think we have a United States president which has the strongest grip on foreign policy. He's been an old hand. He's been an architect of Kerry Lugar Bourbon bill. He understands the regional dynamics, has been involved, was the handyman of Obama for very long, and a very strong, staunch supporter of the Obama policies. The latest book, The Promised Land, which is autobiography of Obama, gives is full of some giveaways. For instance, Obama writes at one place that once the Afghan problem was being discussed during his reign, and General McChrystal called for additional troops to go for a major counterinsurgency operation, he needed 40,000 more troops. And the discourse that ensued in the United States was strongly opposed by Joe Biden, who believed that spending so much in Afghanistan on nation-building tasks and keeping 100,000 United States troops in Afghanistan, it's a futile endeavor and it's going to bleed the United States dry. What was better in his estimation was to go for a much economical counter-terrorism strategy on Pakistan soil. To my mind, what I conclude from that is that the Biden administration would be more cost-benefit conscious while it comes to the regional security policies, as opposed to the strategic thrust of Trump administration's policies. And the disengagement in the United States, which was set in motion by Trump, to my mind, Biden would also encourage that. But at the same time, the reliance on muscular United States policies, the reliance on generals, because in the same book, there was a passage in which Biden and Obama both, they actively discouraged the Pentagon, especially the generals, Mike Mullen and Petraeus, who went to the Washington Times, and McChrystal was fired. And it is written by Obama in that book that the Pentagon, and especially the generals during the Bush era, they had gotten so much used to getting whatever they asked that it was difficult to wean them away from that attitude. The same attitude now Democrats have got another chance. So we have hopes that they would rely less on hard power, hard kinetic power, and go for more trade, economic connectivity, soft power, and possibly counter-terrorism. So this is an aspect that Pakistan needs to be very careful, because we need to get our counter-terrorism operation firmed up, so as when the United States asks for something, so we are better prepared. And East-West corridor, yes, that's a great opportunity, and it's a good takeaway from this discourse. Dr. Monis's ideas, I think they're very good, but a sea change is required in India's policies and India's, a global power, United States, that is using India as a surrogate. Sea change in their policy is also required. So economic and a very good golden nugget that I got from this discourse is that possibly China's involvement in SAARC would be of a great benefit to the region. I think this is an idea we need to push and further consider. With this, sir, I think I again thank you for a very enlightening discourse, and we look forward to future interactions with you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much for the active participation, and we look forward to welcoming you in our next webinars. For all the updates about whatever we are up to, you can follow us on our social media accounts on Facebook, LinkedIn, and